Hey guys, what's up? Steve and I have a 2010 Camaro over here, and we're getting ready to put a starter in it. This one happens to have the V6 in it.
All right, so we're gonna disconnect the battery, but the battery is in the trunk. So we're gonna pop this cable off here, and we flip this little lid up here. Get this off. There's three little things that catches that hold it on here. Now let's pull this off first. I can peel this off. Come on. Okay, so we take this off. This is the cable that runs down to the starter. So we're just gonna leave this off here, kick it aside, and we'll just sit this back in place for now. So now we don't have any live voltage going down to the starter. Otherwise, if we take the, to go to the battery directly, we've got to take the spare tire out and all that baloney, so we're not going that route. So we just took this off here. So now the starter's disconnected. We set it up in the lift, we're gonna put it up. So we're gonna disconnect, we're taking the starter out, and the knock sensor connector is gonna be in the way, which is right here. So it's got a little slide clip that you pull down on, and then you can depress on it with your finger, then you should be able to wiggle it to get it out. All right, let's take a look in here. Okay, I see the tab. Sometimes you have to remove this locking clip completely like that. That's nice, it fell right on the lens.
Yeah.
Now, we should be able to get this tongue to push in. There it goes. So we can slide so you just have the tongue right up here, and it just wasn't letting me go easily. Now this locking tab just slides back in like this. And we'll get this set in place for when we put it back together. And it should just do this with one hand.
Yeah, it's a tight spot to
Okay, so this will lock in place.
pull it this way a little bit.
Yeah,
There you go. All right.
this will lock in place. So, and then we just have to push down on the tan part, and that released it. It wasn't all that easy. So you can remove this little plastic, the white piece here. All right, so we're gonna kick that aside now. And we have the two bolts that hold the starter in are 15 millimeters, which is there's one here, there's one up here, and then we have an exciter wire, which you really can't get at this purple wire until we take this cable off here. And I believe this is a 13, we'll find out. We'll take the cable off, we'll unbolt the starter, and then we're gonna rotate the starter down. And we took the connector off for the knock sensor because you can't get past it with the starter, it's kind of tight. So let's check this one here. I believe it's a 13, and we'll get the main battery cable off of the starter right now. Yeah, it feels like a 13, so see if we can get our ratchet up in there, crack that loose. We might be able to get a short wrench in there, and you know what, that might be the way to go. I'm gonna try and get a short 13 wrench in there.
Okay.
Get it in here, start cracking this loose. So we're taking the nut off, the 13, and then I'm gonna grab the cable and just pop the cable off. Main battery cable here. Should be able to get that off. All right, so we got this off. Should be able to kick it to the side here a little bit. Now, some cars have a heat shield on it. This one does not have a heat shield on it. So now what we're gonna do is, I can't really get it, the exciter wire connector up here. So I'm gonna take the starter out and then rotate it. So I got two 15 millimeters, one right here and one up here, and a little short ratchet and a shallow 15 is gonna let me take them out. So we're gonna go after those. So we're gonna take this 15 up here out. We ran this car for a few minutes. The starter's got a flat spot in it. And this pipe here is just a little hot. So I'm going to take this top one out first. And let's get the bottom one, which is right here. And this is only going to let me back this out so far with this ratchet. And I'm going to get stuck here. So take out as much as I can. The rest will have to be with my fingers. Okay. Bolts are the same length, so it doesn't matter which ones they go in. Now let's see if we can pull the starter back here. And we can rotate it around. I'm trying to get that connector that I couldn't see up there and get that one unplugged, which is the one on the back side over here. And you can't really get at it until you rotate the starter. So let's see if we can get this starter to come out a little bit more. Kind of tight, look at that. I'll tell you that. Alright, let's see if we can get at that connector now. Reaching up over the top here. It's like it's on the back side.
It's a little tab on it.
Yeah, I don't know which style it is. Let's see if we can get a better view of it. Now it's pretty much hitting the knock sensor. I have some slack in this cord, so I'm going to try and get it out a little more.
There it is. There you go.
Boy. Alright, now we got to try and get at that thing up on the top, but it's so freaking tight. Okay, man. Okay, so now we can get at this clip here. Come over on this side, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay, now you can see the clip right there. And you can unplug that. All right, so we got our reman starter here, which the customer got, and you'll notice the points are off a little bit here. So it'd be even harder to disconnect this one. But, so we're gonna just make sure that this 13 millimeter is tight right here, because you ain't gonna really be able to grab it. All right, that's tight. So we're gonna go set this up in place, and we're gonna plug this in first, and then we'll feed the starter up in place. And we're just making sure that we match up the starter and make sure that the cones are all in the right spots, and they all seem, the nose gear looks the same and everything, so that all looks good to me. So our adjustment pattern is the same. You know, the way it bolts on, you gotta make sure that's right. And, all right, and this was original AC Delco. So we're gonna go feed this up, plug this in place, and set it back in place. So here's our wire that we're talking about right here. And this thing's kind of a bitch to get at. So we're gonna set the starter up in place, and we're gonna plug this in first. Might be able to reach over the top to grab this so my hand's not in the way. Okay, so can you see that, Tom?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right, so we're gonna line this up. All right, so we got it to lock in place, and if you come over on this side, you can really see it good.
See?
So this is all locked in place now.
Yep.
Now I can feed the starter back up in the hole. And it was tight, man, I'll tell you. If you didn't take that O2 sensor, I mean the Knox connector off, you weren't getting this thing in. Now we gotta try and feed it back up into the hole here. Very difficult to get the starter back in place. I don't know if it's because it's an aftermarket, but it's dragging on that sensor. I mean, we're talking an eighth of an inch is gonna make a world of difference for me here, but I don't have an eighth of an inch. So we gotta try and wiggle this thing in. So we had a hard time getting the starter in, right? So basically I got it lined up as close as I would, and then I pried on this thing just to get it past, and it's still being a little shitbag and not wanting to go in. So I don't know what else it's hitting, but it's been difficult to get this thing to go in. I don't know if it's my wire up here, which I think it might be now. Oh, my cable up here is sticking me. Yeah. All right. So the battery cable is caught up in here. I'm just being a little shitbag.
There it goes.
Man,
What a pain.
fucking pain. Let's get this cable on now. This is a pain.
So it's hung up on that cable, Steve?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Where is that? Okay,
There
the
you go.
cable has to go. Alright, so the cable's in place. We got the starter back in place. We already connected our exciter wire. So I'm going to tighten this. I think we'll tighten the two starter bolts first, and we can plug the knock sensor one in last. So let's get these bolts in place here. I'm going to put a little never sees on them. All right, we're going to get our bolts caught and get this one up here. You just want to get these so that they just start touching, and I'm going to run the other one in. I don't want to tighten them until I get them both. Alright, we'll get that one. We'll go back to this one. See how the starter just started pulling in place?
Yep.
So you don't want to over tighten it and have it cocked. So you're working them back and forth. Okay, now we'll go back to the top one. Okay, that's tight. That's tight. All right, so we're gonna put our nut back on for the stud here, for the battery cable. And we have the lock washer and the nut. Goes up on here. And the new starter, the nut is now a 14 instead of a 13. So we'll start that by hand. Let's get our wrench in here. I'm working blind here. I can't really see it. And this is why we have that cable disconnected, because you'd be arcing right now trying to tighten this up. I don't want to kill this. Just want to snug it up. Okay, I'm going to look with the mirror and make sure everything looks good. And then we're going to plug in that knock sensor. My battery cable looks good. It's not rubbing any metal or anything. It's in a nice position. That's okay. And then now we're going to plug in this knock sensor. This is right here. This connector is very hard to see where it plugs into. You see that, Tom?
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to try and listen for the click here. All right, there it is. Okay, we got our locking clip back in place. That's all set. Like I said, there was no heat shield on this one. And usually there's a heat shield that covers between the exhaust and that, but there's not one on this car, so not sure the reason for that. It's an original starter AC Delco as well, so. All right, so we got our bolts tight. We got our knock sensor plugged back in. We got our main battery cable hooked on and tight. And our exciter wire, the purple wire, we put on as we were feeding the starter up because you really don't have access to it. And it was very difficult getting this to pop in place. I'm not sure if it's because it's an aftermarket, but just put a little bit of pressure with the pry bar and it sneaked by. And now we're gonna reconnect the battery cable up top, make sure it starts good. We're gonna reconnect here. So put our cable back over the top here for this. And this is the one that goes down to the starter. This is our live battery cable. So we've got that, and then this was the lug that went on that you used to jump the car. And we're gonna tighten this back up. Remember, don't hit any metal with this. Okay, that's good and tight. Put that cover back on. Boy, it went on a lot easier than it did coming off.
Yeah, I know it.
All right, let's try and start it and see how it starts.
It's a moment of truth. Hey! We did all right.
You always want to start it multiple times just to make sure you don't have a loose connection or anything. And that should wind this one up.